The Colorado Supreme Court is removing former President Donald Trump from the state's primary ballot. The court says that Trump is ineligible to be president after his role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. That ruling marks the first time in history that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has actually been used to disqualify a presidential candidate. The provision forbids those who engaged in insurrection from holding office and was used mainly after the Civil War to keep former Confederates out of government. It'll likely be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. For more on this court ruling in Colorado, we're joined by Matthew Lebo, who is the professor of political science at the University of Western Ontario. Matthew, thank you for joining us tonight. Let's start with just the news itself. Were you shocked by this, or is this something we should have expected?
No, I was surprised. A district court in Colorado had said that this portion of the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to presidential candidates and presidents. But that court did say that Donald Trump had engaged in insurrection. And so this Colorado Supreme Court ruling agrees with that portion and says that this part of the 14th Amendment does apply to Donald Trump and to the presidency. And that is surprising.
Let's talk a little bit about Trump himself, especially when it comes to this insurrection. He doesn't actually have any convictions around this. So how is the Colorado able to actually do this?
Well, the court itself decided that Donald Trump's actions amounted to insurrection. The lower court, the district court, had said that as well. And certainly that Donald Trump hasn't been convicted of anything will be part of his legal argument when this is appealed, and this will probably be at the Supreme Court pretty soon. So there'll be a number of reasons why Donald Trump will be fighting this. That's certainly one of them.
Let's talk more about that appeal. What can we expect to see from it when it comes to details in this argument from Trump's team? And when can we expect to see a ruling come down? Because there is a tight deadline here.
Right. So this ruling today is about the Donald Trump appearing on the Colorado ballot for the Republican primary. And of course, the general election is still 11 months away, and this will be decided long before then. But when it gets to the Supreme Court, then it's not just about Colorado, it's about all 50 states. And so that's a much bigger deal. And the Supreme Court, will have to weigh in on this, decide whether Donald Trump did engage in insurrection, and whether or not the 14th Amendment applies to him, and then whether or not he is eligible to run for the presidency. And that decision probably will come pretty soon. They'll have to decide, probably before the Republican primaries are wrapped up and long before the general election.
Well, Colorado isn't alone in this move. We see something similar pending with Michigan. So talk to us a little bit about how, however this falls either side with Colorado, could affect the rest of the country.
Well, it only takes one case for the Supreme Court to take up, that they would then listen to the arguments, and if they agree with the Colorado court, then it would apply across all the states. So this hasn't gone on in Michigan. There are a couple other states that tried this as well, and for procedural reasons didn't make it very far. But this is sort of a concentrated legal effort to question Donald Trump's eligibility for the presidency based on the 14th Amendment. They only had to get it approved. They only had to get a good ruling in one state, and they have that now, and now it'll be up to the Supreme Court, which includes 3 of Donald Trump's appointees and his 6-3 Republican appointees versus Democratic appointees. So Donald Trump is probably in good shape for winning the appeal, but then the political ramifications are something else.
And Matthew, really quickly here, can you tell me what you think Trump's team would have to do to make sure that this is dismissed, or what Colorado's team would have to do to make sure that it's put through?
Well, the Colorado team will make the argument, or that what Donald Trump did was part of an insurrection, that what we saw on January 6th of 2021 was an attempt to stop the peaceful transfer of power, and that the 14th Amendment is pretty clear about engaging in insurrection. Donald Trump's team will argue maybe that it doesn't apply to presidents, that this is undemocratic, that if Republican voters want Donald Trump to be their nominee, that they should be allowed to make that choice. It'll be, argued that it's government overreach, that this is a targeted campaign coming from Biden, even though this is coming from a Colorado court. And Donald Trump will, claim persecution and probably is already raising money based on today's finding.
Okay, and a big fight for sure headed their way. And Matthew Lebo, professor of political science at the University of Western Ontario, thank you for joining us and sharing your insights with our viewers.
You're welcome.